Hello all. So we're going to continue some understanding of movement, and the goal here in this video is to give you the link between these descriptives of movement that we've talked about in previous videos, and I'll very briefly review those. You have your fundamental movement dynamics, moving things together in whole body movements, moving different parts of the body, segmented movement. Then we have ideas about whether you're shifting, okay, whether you're using footwork, whether you're using a weight drop or a rotational movement in order to apply force, okay? And from that we go on to some of the more stylized understandings of movement that we see in martial arts. For example, we see the mother styles in Chinese arts, which correspond: Xinyi, straight, linear; Bagua, circular; and Tai Chi, okay, shifting, taking and incorporating your movement so that you're going from one part of the body to another, okay? And we have a similar thing in the Japanese arts where we talk about Tai Sabaki, which is a kind of a segmented type of movement that's very stylized, okay, has some particular characteristics. We have Taijutsu, which is whole body movement, okay, using the force of your body and your skeletal structure and your weight, okay. And then we have things that are primarily affect related, okay. Excuse me. So, for example, we have the elemental theory, which actually is used comprehensively in Indian, Chinese, Japanese, and virtually all Asian systems of epistemology, of understanding knowledge, okay? And it adds a level to the movement of affect, okay? So wind movement, it's circular movement, okay, with a certain kind of a characteristic feel to it, okay? Moving more aggressively, more explosively, we have fire movement, okay? Again, fire, burning. There's a particular association that ties it in with our whole affect, okay? Wind, fire, water, shifting movement, okay? Shifting our weight, okay? And, of course, Shunyata, the void, okay? The part where all movement can come up into being, okay? Through our own reflexive activity. Did I miss any? Fire, water, wind, earth. Earth, simply using our structure, okay? Just simply the force of our sinews and bones, okay? Which has tremendous power when it's used properly, okay? So, taking all these different descriptives and this index of movement, we come to our training and why this is important and what we can do about it, what it means to us, okay? Primarily, we're training this reflexively. So none of this has to do with a deliberate action of coming in here and setting up a technique against an opponent under similar circumstances, okay? It has more to do with how we will respond in a situation before we come to that point, okay? And this is a big misunderstanding about martial arts, okay? When you talk about warriorship, you talk about natural, okay? What is natural to a human being, okay? If you looked at a Mongol warrior on their horse, you would notice it almost seemed like they were one unit because it's so natural. It has been so inculcated through daily living, okay, that a lot of things don't have to be thought about to that warrior when it has to do with his positioning on the horse in the midst of a fray, okay? The part that most people concentrate on the martial arts, if we have a pyramid, is the very top, okay? The point where you come to trying to set up a specific technique against opponent or situation. But before you get even remotely to that area, the real training that takes place has to be reflexive, okay? Otherwise, there is no speed involved that will enable you, despite what you hear, okay? If somebody comes up here and you're in range and they start stabbing you very quickly, the idea that you will find some way to avoid that without just understanding a technique or a series of techniques is just a fallacy, okay? Let's look at that situation and deconstruct it to get where we need to get next, okay? The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up an understanding of distance. Let's see if I can do this. All right. I think this will work. I have a distance to this board. My distance is exactly just to the tip of my weapon, okay? What that should mean is that if I'm standing with this board at that very distance, okay, or even a little farther back, if none of us move, he will just touch me with the weapon, okay? All right? It means that if I step back just a little bit more, now I'm just out of range of the weapon, okay? So far, so good. If I'm here, then I have no control over distance, except if I'm coming here, which is fine. I just have to understand that, okay? On the other hand, if I'm way back here, then there's really no way that I can make him think that I'm aware of what he's doing, because I'm such a far distance back that I'm giving him the means and the option to move forwards towards me with the weapon, okay? So none of these are good or bad, except for if most people aren't aware enough to understand what they imply, okay? It's implied that if I'm here, I had better not be thinking about moving back when he attacks me, because he's going to be moving forwards, okay? So I have to be able to manipulate this distance so that I can make an angle or have some sort of way to continue to control the distance, all right? If I'm here, then I have to be very mindful that whatever happens, I have to be here subsequently, okay? And if I'm just here, okay, where you can just touch or just a little beyond, it means that as long as he doesn't move his whole body, I've maintained a distance where I can do anything to him I want pretty much, and I'm just out of range of what he can do to me, okay? So, once you understand how that works, now reflexively training your body, making adjustments, is the next step, and it's very important, okay? So, one of the first things that we have to understand is what we should be training our body to do, okay? When you're setting up to do technique, all right, in order for you to do something that's effective against a person, you have to be able to have an opening to do that. And the biggest fallacy in martial arts has to be that people think that that's a function of technique. It simply isn't, okay? You cannot use a technique for that purpose, okay? And the reason you cannot use a technique for that purpose is it may look like when you're demonstrating it that it's very easy to do that, but it's messy, and it never happens that way, because unless you strike prematurely, the person's response will not be fitting to make that technique work. And striking prematurely is a very good strategy. There's no question about it. But in order to set that technique up, we're going to start the next video on that. We'll start with that and work our way through, okay? All right, so what we've established so far is talking about reflexively understanding distance, okay? And how we're going to work that into fighting conceptually and eventually into fighting, okay?